Hello there, friends, and welcome back to the Doing What Matters podcast. I'm your host, Teresa McCloy.
And I'm your co host, Erica Vinson, and we are thrilled that you're listening in today as we dive into discussions about life and business and all the things that truly matter.
Here on this podcast, we embrace a holistic approach to living, a way of life that's rooted in rest and not rush. It's about connecting to our real self, our real life, and our real work, remembering who God uniquely created us to be and redefining success through a different lens.
So, whether you're here to find inspiration, practical advice, or just a moment of connection, we're glad you're here. So, let's dive into today's conversation. Teresa, it is so good to be back. And we are continuing a conversation that you began back on episode number 291 as you talked about sabbaticals for entrepreneurs. And you're getting ready to step out on this brave journey. So we're going to just walk down the path a bit more and catch up on where you are in this journey. Just give us a little recap and catch us up on what today looks like for you as you're preparing for sabbatical.
Thank you for asking. And it looks totally different. When I recorded that episode back in the middle of July, it would have been July 2024, if you're taking in content evergreen. And I was in a place of kind of the summer slump. We talked about that just a few weeks ago, you and I did, of not knowing and being pretty afraid, a lot of fear coming up about why did I make this decision? Can a entrepreneur who owns a business really step away for a long period of time? I do believe they can. And I talked about on that episode that I know those who have, but as I made the decision for myself to step away, I had a lot of fear that was rising up in me. And I was still in that place of a lot of unknowns. A lot has shifted in the past 6 weeks. And I'm very grateful for that because it was feeling pretty fearful. But maybe that's common. Maybe that is part of the journey to get to sabbatical.
Mm. Yeah, thanks for just being so vulnerable and naming that fear because anytime that we prepare to do something that's new that we haven't done before, there can be resistance. And so, as you encountered the fear, what was it for you even that has helped you to say, there's been a shift? So, I know that the fear was there. What's helped you get to where you are now?
I think the shift has come through number one, I needed to just set aside some time to process some things. And I'm a very visual person. So I like to mind map things out and just do a brain dump. And I think one of the biggest fears I had was that would the business still be there when I came back from sabbatical? So if I take 10 weeks off, will the business still function? And it's strange because we have a great team. I know that everyone knows their roles on the team and they do those roles now. I don't know why I was in fear, but I think that's probably pretty common is as the owner of the business is the one that the rubber meets the road with me. And I do create some of the revenue that we take in privately. So it wasn't about what can everybody function without me. That really wasn't it. Is was will there be a business and are we prepared for 2025 to happen? So over the last 6 weeks since July, when I talked about this, that's one of the things I've been able to do is really map out a plan of what is going to be launching in 2025, what's the products that we're going to have out there, what are the things that we're going to be doing. Once I got that nailed down, I'm like, oh, the team can implement that and be ready for it. So that was a lot of it was just getting a plan and getting a business plan mapped out for next year.
The fear of the unknown really dissipates. As you talked about the mind map, just getting it out and saying, okay, if I look at 2025, oh, yeah, realistically, can my team execute this? But when it's just conceptual in our heads, it can feel so overwhelming. And so
For
I think
sure.
if there's anyone listening going, okay, that sounds really nice to take a sabbatical. And I would love that as a business owner, but I'm not sure what impact this has. What else could you share that you've discovered or that you're discovering because you are on the front end of this? There's going to be a whole different conversation on the other side of it that really will help to ensure that the business is still moving forward.
I think it does feel strange to look 6 months out is really what we're looking at. And for our size of business, at least, that seems like a long way from now. There's a lot that needs to happen between now and then. But yet, here we are almost at Labor Day weekend, and I'm planning on taking off about the second week of November, first week of November, somewhere around in there. So, literally, we've got about 8 weeks. And so then there's 8 to 10 weeks off, and then it's that. So, that's 4 or 5 months out that feels like a long way. And I think even for the team, it can feel like a long time. And when I start talking about it to all of you on the team, sometimes I feel like your eyes glaze over and go, wow, we just need to get through this fall. And you're wanting to talk about next year. So, one of the things that's been helpful for me is to process some of this outside of our team and to have some people that I'm talking to that can process it with me, a coach, a spiritual director. Those are two of the things because it's both about the business and then it's also about the spiritual side of things for me, of just processing those outside of the team and then coming back to the team to say, here's what I've discerned, here's what I've seen, and not getting too worked up about it, but knowing that I've got a plan. The team doesn't have to know all the gory details yet. They will before I leave, but that's been helpful for me, is to talk to somebody outside of my team for one thing.
Yeah, and those outside conversations still allow you to maintain being the leader, right? Taking
Mhm.
that role in your business. And there's so much as you look at the business, it can be overwhelming. We use a little exercise sometimes with our people that's very simple. That's just, okay, what am I going to plant in this season? What am I going to prune? What am I going to tend? A time of sabbatical, you may look at it and go, okay, we're not planting a lot of new things here in the next month, but how will we tend to the things that we have? And are there things we can prune even in this season that are not essential to what's happening?
Yeah, that's really good language for it because I started pruning probably clear back in January of this past year, knowing this was coming, not really talking a lot about it outside of the team, but knowing it was coming, everything that came up that I'm like, nope, that falls in November and December, and I'm on sabbatical. Or as I was planning programs or when products were going to launch or when different things were going to happen, knowing that, nope, it's not going to happen in November and December. And I purposely chose sabbatical during those 2 months, knowing that we don't do a lot of selling per se and a lot of different types of things in December. In our industry, we wouldn't launch something in December. November could still be a month where we have things going on for sure. But I started pruning clear back then. I started nothing being planted, but lots of things have felt that they needed tended to. So once I got a business plan together for 2025 and knew what we were going to do, that felt better. And it really felt this relief now as I've spent the last few weeks, and I was sharing this with you offline. I have really been looking then at what do I want to do during this sabbatical for my own self?
Mm.
What do I wanna grow? Not that I wanna overplan it, but there's just some things that, if I had time, what would I read? What would I learn about? I'm a learner, and so what do I wanna learn about? So that's been fun to have that open up now that I feel like the business stuff has been decided.
Yeah, Sabbath rest in general just takes preparation, it takes intentionality. And so, even to expand it into this space of saying, and sabbatical is really just an extension of that in real life. As you think about even maintaining connections with client, because when you think about fear, right, there's work and everyday tasks that you could hire, and our team will keep the ball rolling. But there's people that you've built know and trust with that know you, and you're the face of the business. What comes up as you think about even maintaining those client relationships?
I'll be honest, even as we're recording this podcast, one of the things that I wanted to keep going is the podcast. And I wanted to look at what are the things that will still happen because we're no longer just me as a business. This business is bigger than me. I get to own it, run it, be the face and the name, but yet it's a whole team of people and it's a whole community. And all of those things. So there will things like the podcast. You've been co-hosting with me and will continue to. So the podcast is still going to be doing. Erica's going to be hosting the podcast because she's now a co-host. So she will be doing the podcast. We made that. Lindsay and I have already talked about communication and how that will continue to go. I've worked with another girl on our team, Nancy, that's been on the podcast, that's on our team that takes care of a lot of the behind the scenes. So one of the things I still haven't, and maybe I'll have it figured out by the time we talk about this again. But these are just the details that you think of. How do I be in technology and still be on sabbatical? Because I don't intend to take a sabbatical for 10 weeks where I never open my laptop. My laptop is a tool that I use in learning, in other things. I read about travel and I read about flower gardens and I read about spiritual growth and tools that I love to learn about and personality. All of that happens through technology for me. And I haven't said that this sabbatical is a no laptop, no phone sabbatical. So I'm trying to figure that out right now of how can I set up those pieces of technology to where I'm not sucked back in to work? How can I
Yeah.
separate my email from work email and things like that? But here's where I don't want to get caught, Erica, if I'm honest, in being so worried about that to happen that ruins it for me. For example, I was thinking about this just last week. You and I have a friendship outside of work. I do with almost everybody on my team, and I'm like, I hope they don't think that I'm not gonna talk to them for 10 weeks. That feels
Yeah.
strange to me. That would feel very lonely to think,
Mm.
"Wow, I'm not gonna talk to these people for" that's to me not what going on sabbatical's about. Now, I know there are people that maybe do wanna take a sabbatical from their business, and they want no contact at all. That is not me. So I think that's an important part of this that I'm gonna be discerning over the next few weeks is what does that look like? How do I put up good guidelines? And how do I communicate that
Mhm.
to you? Because you just even in our friendship might be thinking, oh, I don't know if I'm supposed to talk to her or not. So that's a whole nother piece of this that I still have to figure out and discern.
Yeah. And so that piece of connection, just how will
Mhm.
I steward connection throughout this journey as well? And as you said, it's not just about all the things we have to do. And you've been so intentional with our team. You mentioned some examples there, even of partnering together. Our team really partners together well in every aspect of the business so that if one of us is missing, there's someone that could tag team or we can collaborate. And so if you're listening and you don't have that, you might be considering like, who could I tap that could actually partner with me in this so that it would create the space for me to actually embrace the rest I need.
And I'm grateful that the way I have intentionally over the last 7 years set up my business is it has things like reoccurring revenue. It has a team of people that can step in for me in different places. I'm not the only one who coaches our clients, but I have had to be intentional to speak with clients and say, I'm not going to be available in November and December. So we need to meet in October and then you won't hear from me. So there's a difference between I won't be talking to clients because, again, it's a different relationship than people on my team that I'm friends with. And I trust all of you to have conversations with me that are not like about work. And we've also are setting up now some systems of how you all will meet together and talk to one another while I'm gone for those things. There's the being side of figuring this out, and there's the practical doing side of figuring this out as well to step away for this period of time.
Absolutely. And as you've learned more and just continue to discern with God what this being part of the spiritual approach, how do you feel like it's shifted some of the ways that you are living and also working?
It just continues. I think this journey of our rules of life and what we set up are just always in motion and they're always growing. We're always planting, tending, pruning in those ways. So it's just continued to deepen for me. And I'm actually have shifted my emotions. I'm excited. I have signed up for some learning that I'm going to do, and that will give me some relational piece too with people that are brand new people in my lives. So I'm taking a couple of courses and doing a couple of things that are for my spiritual growth, my personal development growth. I mentioned on the other podcast that I did back in July, we have a big trip planned and overseas, going to Europe, doing a cruise, and super excited about that. So I think just I'm excited to actually come back from sabbatical and go, wow, what all did I learn? And that we're stronger as a business and as a company. And I don't know, I'm just starting to feel a lot of peace and trust that I didn't have even 6 or 8 weeks ago. And some of that's just opening my hands and saying, okay, God, you're inviting me to this because you're inviting me to it, that you're ahead of me in it, and that part of it is building a deeper level of trust in God as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And just knowing that you get to partner with God in the intentionality, in the preparation, and that God will empower you and He's going to carry us even through this season.
I think when I first decided to go on sabbatical, it may have been coming from a little bit of burnout and a little bit of, okay, I want to come back. Let's be honest. I want to come back. I've joked with you all that y'all can have it. I'm done. But that's not true. That's not how I feel at all. I'm excited now about coming back with fresh eyes and a renewed sense of purpose and the work that God has called me to do. Yeah, I'm super excited about even these next few weeks as I still continue to prepare and put some things together. And whatever doesn't get done or doesn't happen, it's okay. I'm not leaving forever, just for 8 or 9 weeks.
Yeah. Thanks so much for just sharing and giving us an update because I feel like this journey is one that we long for and yet we don't always know how.
Mhm.
And so if you're listening, you heard some really practical things as Teresa was talking about, just the plan that you have has helped you move from fear to actually naming excitement and the communication and the connections that you're desiring, the intention that you're setting forth just with travel and those types of things. So we're looking forward to continuing the journey with you, friends. So thanks for bringing us along. It's such
Thank
a
you.
vulnerable space. And yeah, we're with you in it. And it's just exciting to see what God's going to do.
Thanks. We'll try to do one more update probably before I take off in November. And for those of you who are faithful listeners to the podcast, just know that we've got some exciting things because while I'm gone, Eric is going to be doing some interviews, having some co hosts, doing some different things. And the Doing What Matters podcast is not going anywhere while we're on sabbatical. It will be fresh and live each and every week.
Absolutely. We're going to keep creating those moments and just participating with God as we go. And we're excited about that journey. So, as you are walking out your real life this week, just remember that every ordinary day has extraordinary moments. You just have to look for them. Have a great week, everyone.
Thanks, Erica. Have a great week, everyone.